Thank you for coming tonight. Before we start the meeting, really quick, I am a person of transparency, so I'd like to tell all of you that I called 911 to see how fast that the Auburn Volunteer Fire Department could get to my house just to check to make sure they were still working properly. The truth was I had an issue. I had an issue for a couple of 2-3 months on breathing. It got extremely bad, and Thursday night I couldn't breathe at all when I came home from the zoning board meeting here. I called 911, they came, and to make a long story short, I have AFib, which I'm told millions of Americans have. It's when the top part of your heart is doing the Daytona 500 and the bottom part of your heart is driving on one road. And so they shock you, they get you back in rhythm, and now, even though I had prided myself up to 70 years of age, only taking a Nexium pill, I'm now taking a blood thinner, a beta blocker, a high cholesterol pill, a water pill. So, just want you to know, everything's okay though, I'm good.
Happy you're here.
And thank you, and you guys did an unbelievable job. They got me in the ambulance and they hooked me up to their monitors. I said I wanted to go to Hillcrest, all my doctors are at Cleveland Clinic. And the young man said, Mr. McCune, if you were my father, I'd say the way everything's dropping, we should get to the quickest place we can get to. So we went to Jaga, and everything worked out fine. And as always, we've used you guys, unfortunately, many times with my mom and my dad, and I appreciate everything you guys do. So with that, thank you, and we'll go into the minutes, approval of our regular and our organizational meeting at all? Any additions, corrections, or?
I saw the draft, and there was a lot of fill-ins needed, and those got done. Basically, you made the motion in a second.
And I made one, Fred, it was on Jane's increase. I gave Nancy the information because all it said was for the 5.9% and then the total hourly rate, but there wasn't the additional percentage that had been calculated in there.
Okay.
So I calculated out and put that into the thing.
Yeah, and I talked to her today, and I had a couple of corrections to it, so looks like everything that I gave her was put in.
All those got corrected, I'll make a motion to approve.
I guess the biggest one would have been, in the organizational, would have been the change from hourly to salary for administrator.
Right.
That got done?
Yeah, that was,
Then I'll make a motion, I'll second it.
Okay,
Okay?
yes,
for the vote?
Yep. Mike?
yes.
PJ?
Yes.
Gene?
Yes. Next on the agenda is scheduled reports, and to start off with, we have Chief John Phillips.
Thank you. I've got a couple things, and Mr. Minacci, our corporation president, is going to talk to you a little bit about ARPA funds and also COVID funds. Start with, I've got a requisition put into you, Fred's got it, for our floor cleaning that we have done on a yearly basis. These guys have held their pricing for the last 10 years. They've not increased their pricing whatsoever. They've done a terrific job. So I want to thank Interfinish for taking good care of our fire department. Second issue is last year calls. EMS calls, we had 520 compared to 2020 was 488. Fire calls are 333 compared to the year before it was 347. So the total calls is 853 for last year. The year before that was 835, very close. A little more though. Mutual aid given was 182. The year before that was 189. Mutual aid received was 65. The year before that was 62. Total transports are 367. The year before that was 329. Total transports was 183. I'm sorry, total non-transports, 183. The year before that was 191. Total transfer to other agencies is 12. The year before that was 6. Total patients was 562. The year before that was 526. Our percentage of multiple calls is 24.15%. Year before that was 20.36%, so it's gone up. The multiple calls report for last year. Double calls, we've had 83 of them. Triple calls, we had 10 of them. Quadruple calls, we had 1. Sex couplet calls, we had 1, for a total of 95 back-to-back calls. So that's gone up. With that being said, any questions on last year's report? And you look inquisitive.
Oh, I'm listening. No, I'm listening. We got it on the page.
So with that being said, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Minacci, and he can take it from here.
Thanks, Chief. All right, I've got a total of 4 projects, 3 regarding ARPA funding, and then the final one being with the remaining CARES Act funding. The first thing we can go through and talk about, I know Chief has been working on with you guys for a little while regarding the AEDs for some of the township buildings. So we've got final quotes and numbers in. We're looking at adding an AED to Town Hall, the Park Building, Service Department, Adam Hall, and the Administration Building. The pricing that we have, which I think do you guys have a copy of all of this?
Yes,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. It's not just-
So the pricing that we have for everything is gonna include the actual AED itself, the cabinets that they go in, as well as the sign to mark where it's at, as well as monthly monitoring. Some of those prices are a little bit different based on whether or not there's already an alarm system installed in that building. But total cost for the AEDs and installation is gonna be $16,402.39. And then on the page behind that, it breaks down the monitoring fees. So we would have a recurring monthly cost of $135 for that. And what that monitoring fee does, or the monitoring does, is then when that cabinet is opened, it's gonna automatically contact Gilmore and then subsequently page us out with a notification that that cabinet's been opened.
So hopefully if the ARP funds would take care of the main installation, I don't think you can have monitoring costs go out in perpetuity on this, so the $135 would be on us as a monthly charge.
Yeah, this is probably a good time as any, since we're trying to figure out what's gonna qualify as a valid expenditure and what's not. Did I hear that right from the prosecutor himself the other day, that we can spend this money basically any way we spend any other money?
But he said we had to save the first half with the second half first? You had to save it total before you spend it? Was that part of the deal?
I wasn't overly clear, and I'm kind of waiting for them to send us a written explanation. I don't know, Fred, if you got
I
anything
think
on
we
that.
got one.
I haven't heard that.
But it
they
was something
did-
along the lines of, it had to do with overages and our expenses.
They just issued guidelines, like last week, final guidelines on all of that. So I'll have to take a look at that and review those and see what the procedures are for incurring the expenses. And I
Yeah.
know there's reporting requirements, but as far as having to have both halves at the same time, I was not aware of that.
You guys.
Did you hear anything like that about saving both apps?
No, I heard
No?
something about the $10 million threshold,
Right.
which don't come anywhere near having to meet
Right.
that requirement. And you guys are aware that we get contradictory information
And
from
'cause
the
like I said,
prosecutor's office.
what I gleaned from it is like, if you have, you're over on your expenses, okay? So it's like, are they telling us, yeah, if we're over our expenses because of COVID, then we can use the money for that, or is he winking and saying, you know, if you're over your expenses, i.e., just go ahead and spend the money.
Wasn't it sort of carte blanche, just loss of revenue?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
how are you gonna track that then?
Anything.
That's why I made the comment to him about the, you know, how do they track this?
Well, that has to be, I think, are they talking about loss of revenue due to the
Due to
COVID
COVID.
pandemic?
We don't have to document it, because we don't come to that $10 million threshold. If you're
So
under that,
everything below
you don't
that
have to
doesn't have to be
document any
documented.
loss. So in other words, up until that $10 million, what I heard was basically general fund money.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
I'll look
Yeah,
into
me
that.
too, and that's why it's, you know, it's one of those things that sounds way too good to be true, so if we get some clarification on that. But what I wanna do, tonight with these guys, is we'll go through the projects one at a time. And then we'll just make a motion to, if you think the project is valid, then we can send it up to the prosecutor's office, to see, you know, just get approval based on, you know, what we know so far. So that way we can get this moving, and then we can still in parallel check out, the funding issues, based on the, over expenses and so.
Was, now that would be $135 per building, correct?
No, that's the
Total.
total monthly
total.
cost.
That's the
between
total.
buildings.
That's the
Yeah.
total cost. See, we already have, Gilmore monitoring,
Right.
at all, well, we have it here, we have it at the,
Adam Hall,
Adam Hall
service garage.
Service Garage, so
fire
most of them already have it, so it's a small addition to add this. The bigger addition now is gonna be, down at, the park, because we don't have anything there. Which brought us into a secondary expense, which we're looking at is, well, while we're doing that, we might as well put in like some smoke detection and automatic alarming to the thing, so.
Makes sense.
That will be some, you know, we'll try to slip that in, but if they catch us, I think it would still be, it's not gonna be that much more to have that, that protection on that building. So that would seem to make sense.
Just to clarify, the summary does not include the expense to put that in that building.
Okay.
Kept the cost down to the bottom line of what we needed for the AD project as a whole. So if we want to put smoke detectors in the building, in the Parker building, which I would recommend, because it's gonna save you on your insurance premium and put the tarmac on that.
Absolutely.
That's gonna be a cost that's listed in the regular proposal.
Yeah, and you know, when we first started, well, last summer, I think, Chief, you came in and started on this. Those were the first two buildings that came to mind that should have this, is Adam Hall and the park,
Right.
for kind of obvious reasons, so.
Plus, I kinda thought this building should have it being, we have.
Well, yeah, from there, the more you thought about it and with the funds available.
I think, like I said, you know, somebody off the street, and I mentioned this in the meeting last night, somebody flops over, the odds of having somebody there with the insight, hey, I'll go get the, they're gonna dial 911. But if we talk to KCE, Jennifer, and let them know it's there, and maybe she can pass the information on to the coaches or whatever, have some people there, just a little training within the admin building, so the three of them know, you know, what they've got going there. And whoever, you know, just a quick training session for whoever's gonna be monitoring the events up at Adam Hall. So, at least that way, we've got somebody in there who is immediately gonna know if something happens, that we do have access to this, and then can make the assessment of whether to use it or not.
The other thing I should mention is, as you said, Mike, we started this project months ago. There was a price increase, so the original packet that Vince Solario put together for us while I was gone, it's got one price in it, this one's got the updated pricing. Unfortunately, it went up this year, but
Well, that was a big surprise, something went up, who didn't know? Yeah, if something comes up anymore, it's like, don't even bother mentioning it, because it's just, we do, you know, being in business, I mean, everything we've got is just skyrocketing.
and of course, during the winter time, when the weather gets cold, we take the unit out of the Parker building to be out for the winter time.
Okay, so if we want to stop there, I'll make a motion to go ahead, take this package, send it up to the prosecutor's office for evaluation of whether she feels it would be a viable expense for the ARP funding. So that's a motion.
Second.
Mike?
Yes.
PJ?
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
Okay, so we got through phase one.
Okay. All right, the next thing, Mike, I know we talked about this with you. This is regarding a UVC light. We had a gentleman come out and give us a presentation before one of our prior board meetings. He's a retired, he's a retired assistant chief. He since retired from fire service and has been working with this moonbeam company. So they produce these UVC lights that seems to be their primary focus, and they're very focused on being the best product and not selling something that has a UVC label on it and doesn't do an adequate job disinfecting. So they're really looking at the commercial grade aspect of these lights. So we're looking at 2 units of these moonbeam lights. They're portable. There's some pictures on the next page, but they come in a little case and you can roll it around. We would primarily be looking at using these for the back of the squad after calls to be able to disinfect, as well as some different areas in the building. We're discussing the possibility of maybe getting 2 units, one to keep downstairs in the squad days for trucks and apparatus, and then one upstairs so we can use that for
Sleeping quarters
disinfecting.
and whatnot.
Sleeping quarters, day room, kitchen, everything like that. So we can set them up pretty much in any area. I know talking with Chief, he said if this is something else you guys are interested in for the service garage or anything like that, we could look at that as well. But they are, as far as disinfection with those go, definitely one of the higher disinfection rates for a shorter period of time, which is perfect for what we need it for, to be able to make sure we can have quicker turnaround times.
How do they work? What do you gotta do, manually
Yeah, so you,
light stuff up, or?
no, so you set it up. So essentially what we would do is we'd have 3 locations for the SWATs. We would set it up in the back doors, open the back doors. These work, the disinfection works on anything that's in the line of sight, essentially. So 6 minutes at the back door, I believe it is. Be another 6 minutes, we would take it up to the front of the back of the squad and get the other direction, and then another 6 minutes for the cab. These are also in conjunction with like gross decontamination, you know, so this isn't obviously going to take care of anything that, any blood or emesis, anything like that, so we still will manually clean prior to setting these up. And then we could set these up and this would take care of everything else that we can't see, specifically COVID.
But again, with the big issue of cleaning the squads with the COVID,
Mhm.
you can do a whole squad in 18 minutes. You can't go through the whole thing with Lysol wipes that quick.
Is anybody else using these, you know of? already?
Yeah, so there's been a few different places who have been using them. I know Orange Village was one of the primary departments that was using it, and they were actually working with this vendor and setting up kind of a drive-through one day a week, so they were having some other departments come out so they could get SWATs disinfected as well, but they've had very positive things to say about it.
And what does something like this cost?
So pricing on these units, they recently got a contract for Cleveland Hopkins Airport, and they dropped their pricing for that. So they're honoring that pricing for us as well. So for one unit, it's $19,500. And then we were also looking at the bulbs, or what has lifespan, so they have a 600-hour lifespan, which would get us through a pretty decent amount of time, but we were looking at getting a second set of bulbs so that we could replace those when the time comes as well. And those are $600 for each set.
So we're looking at over 40 grand for,
Yeah, so the total for 2 units with the spare bulbs would be $40,200.
again, we've got
Covered by ARP funds?
yeah, and everything here we're talking about, well, except for the one, which will be the remaining CARES Act money, but this is all our funding,
Okay.
so.
And we have how much ARP funds?
$630,000.
Okay,
74.
I'm in.
Yeah, so we're trying, and again, that's why I had these guys go through their, because, it's hard to come up with something that you can actually use this money for, so, to me, this one's a perfect use, okay? We're disinfecting for COVID, and, I don't think, again, they would have any problem with that.
You gotta stand there and monitor this while it's going on, or can you walk
So it
away
has
from it, or-
the actual top of the case that it sits in is the remote, so you unscrew that portion, set it up. So you're not standing there and monitoring it, you can't look at it while it's on. But you use that as the remote, set the timer, and then you can walk away.
I remember the former president talking about something like this, and the media had all kinds of fun making fun of him, and here it is a real thing, yeah.
I guess the next question to be asked, since you brought that up, does it work?
Yes, so it does. So this company actually did some due diligence and actually had some decent data to present. So they went out and did the expense of having this tested on a live COVID strain. And I forget what the time was. It was within seconds that it killed that. So obviously the disinfection is going to be based on the distance the light is away and then the time of exposure. But for, looking at what we're looking at, yes, we can have a very high rate of disinfection, about 99%.
So basically, just to make a long story short, you're gonna get this, you're gonna put it in the squad, you're gonna put it after you remove a patient or whatever and turn this on, and then move it after that. First 6 minutes, you're gonna move it up to the front, and then the middle, and you're done. That's pretty much what I'm hearing?
And then we can use this in, we can set it up for any of our vehicles, which ideally setting it up in our chase car and the SWAT are the two biggest things. So those are the vehicles that are responding to each EMS call.
You could do the engines too.
And the engines, yeah.
Okay, well, again, it'll be the same as before. Make a motion to send this to the prosecutor's office to see if this would be a viable expense.
I'll second it.
We don't have to make the decision ourselves right now, but once we know if it's a viable expense, then we can
Right.
go forward and make our decision. So I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Alright, Mike,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
And Mike, I'll get that quote over to you. I realize you guys don't have a copy of that, so.
Yeah, make sure we get the
Make sure we
quote. Well, again, this stuff isn't, there's only one thing in here tonight that's time sensitive, and that's the CARES funding. Because we have to make a decision on that within the next month. So, but this, when you get it to us, we can get it up to the prosecutor's office. Not a problem.
Perfect. All right, the final thing for the ARP funding, which surprisingly seems to be included in there as far as stormwater and wastewater management, is converting our dry pond that we have in the back of the station to a wet pond.
With the dry hydrant.
With a dry hydrant. So what that allows us to do is, it goes in conjunction with a few things. First thing is it gives us a source of water at the station, so the station's in the center of the township, so that puts us in relatively close proximity for anything in the center of the township as far as water supply goes. And it's a great setup with that building. We have 2 entrances. It's easy to get big trucks in and out of
Do you
there.
guys want to take a quick look? This is the proposal for
Um,
the dry pond.
The second component of that is when we do hose testing and training, this gives us a water source so we don't have to take trucks out of service, go fill them after. So it's able to let us, when we are doing hose testing every year, keep guys at the station in service instead of going out and running around to fill a tanker down at the Ladue or the church or any of our other dry hydrants. The third, one of the biggest components for us is as we continue to look at decreasing our ISO rating, one of the big components of that, just based off of where we're at, is our water sources. So that's our biggest detriment with not having any type of city water available. They really break down how far your different water sources are, and then with that, how many gallons that encompasses. So we have a couple, like Ladue, for example, is over 10 million gallons, so there's no certification process that has to go through with that. But for some of our other smaller ponds that we have around the township, we actually have to have an engineer come out, essentially measure the depth of it, and then there's some other planning that goes in as far as a 50-year drought plan and everything, and to make sure we maintain a minimum number of gallons for that to be a certified water source. By constructing this and having it be dry currently, we can build it to those specifications. So we already have that information, and we don't have to have another engineer come out to do the certification for that water source. We can show that documentation and have it available there.
I'll be honest, I haven't really monitored how much water is ever in there on any given day. I'm much more familiar with, I think, maybe overly designed water retention pond at the park, which hardly ever has water in it. Is there ever water in there?
The way it's set up right now is to continue to drain out. So it actually drains to like the northwest corner of the lot the station's on. But
Well, it should catch stormwater though. That's
yeah,
what
so it does catch stormwater. It has a little bit more in the spring, and then
It has a French drain at the
Yes.
bottom, that's why it's never got water in there.
yeah, and there's an overflow grate in there as well. So what we would be looking at doing is excavating that out.
Yeah.
There's some schematics in there as far as the depth and everything goes. We would keep that existing overflow drain and use that as the top of the water level. And then also, as Chief said, run our dry hydrant line over to the paved area so that we can tie in the trucks there.
I have a question. Are the trucks full with water
Yes, so.
always?
Except when we're
Except
testing
when we're-
hose.
Yeah,
So when you're testing the hose, you're using the water
Right,
in the tank?
and then we gotta refill it,
And then you go refill it?
which means that they gotta leave the premises, they go to one of the dry hydrants in the township to fill up. And while they're gone, we've only got 4 guys on station. While they're gone, they're taking our manpower away from the station, so we have another call, we have to come back to the station and grab the appropriate apparatus. This will allow us to be close by and take the apparatus that we need to have for a particular call. The other thing I should mention, sorry,
Go on.
we're digging it down approximately 8 foot deeper. And the reason for that is the existing drain structure that's there now, that comes from the road department, is at a certain elevation, we can't raise it. So that determines where the pond is now, we have to go deeper in order to make this work.
I get that, and we're talking about the readiness if you're called, but you're telling me that the truck is always full with water unless you're testing the hose. And then after you test the hose, you fill the tank back up,
Right.
right? So you run down to Ladue and fill it back up and bring the truck back, and our main concern is if somebody calls for a fire, why you just happen to be filling up the truck at Ladue, that it would take away from our crew, is that?
That's
Is
a
basically,
possibility.
is that what I'm hearing?
that's the possibility. Really, one of the biggest benefits we stand to see from this is having a certified water source in the center of the township that we can use for water.
And they don't
levels.
consider
So-
from the fire department to Ladue close enough to,
So there, I forget exactly what the radius is.
how much would it save us on our ISO or whatever, as far as our rating, to have
Depends
that
on the
versus
insurance
there's a-
company that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, have you checked with our insurance, what the difference
So
would
Tara,
be in digging a $50,000 pond versus filling up at Ladue?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, the different insurance companies look at everything differently. This is one small component of our ISO rating, but it's the biggest hurdle for us to get over. There's a lot of other factors that weigh into that as far as the equipment we have on trucks, the training we do, a myriad of things, how many people we have responding to incidents.
So I
this
guess
is-
what I'm saying is, I know our training is tops, I know our equipment is tops, So how much of a difference is it gonna make to have a pond right at the fire station versus filling up at Ladue for insurance or whatever? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, now you're getting.
Is that a benefit? Is it that big of a benefit? That's all I'm asking out loud.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that, well, we went into this before,
Okay,
when we were looking at ISO ratings,
right,
because, I actually called some insurance companies to try to get some information on
right,
how the ISO rating would affect people's insurance.
right. But we already know that, right? That
No,
our-
not only I'm talking people's not just the township. The ISO rating affects your homeowner's insurance,
Okay,
okay?
right,
But now the key thing with that is, if, based on your ISO rating, if it goes up, the insurance company said, well, if the ISO rating goes up, it's like, well, you can either, your insurance may go up or it may go down. Because now if it goes up, the rating goes up, then that takes you into ratings, let's say you go from a 7 to an 8 or whatever. Then they're doing general classification of expenditures based on different areas that are falling into that classification. So if you're amortizing that over a larger area and you could take it from a 7, all of a sudden you're up to an 8, which is a city, and they've got a higher rating, So that was something we could never guarantee, saying, hey, if we increase our ISO rating, your homeowner's insurance will go down.
is that what we're gonna tell people?
No, you can't
I
tell
don't
them that.
think it's,
What you can tell them
Yeah.
is that if your ISO rating changes, this is what you can tell them, what I told people. If we change our ISO rating, one of three things is gonna happen. Your homeowner's insurance is gonna go down, or it's gonna stay the same, or it's gonna go up. But it's only those three options, there's no other changes to that.
Quite
Am I
like
correct in
rating.
that assessment?
So historically, and there's a ton of ambiguity on how this is all actually plays out. When ISO actually comes out and sits down with us and we do a review with them, they love to tout that. So there's definitely, and we can see that based on looking through prior examples. The biggest, and just clarification wise, so an ISO class 1 is the best certification you can have. It's like golf scores.
you're not gonna get
Ten,
anywhere
which-
near that without
we're-
central water.
No, and we won't.
And I remember going through this
Oh,
years
yeah, I've
ago
gone through
too.
it as
We've gone
well,
through
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, what's the best you can get if you don't have,
I think
city
What
water,
was, do
pipe
you know
water?
what Middlefield was down to, a 3? Something like that.
So- I think somewhere around a 3. I think Bainbridge is approaching that. Again, there's a ton of other things that need to happen and fall into place for that to
Municipal water,
be
et cetera.
real.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is water supply.
Mhm.
Within those different numbered classifications, there's separate lettered classifications that define what your water supply looks like, so you can get down to a 3. Why in certain areas that have closer access to water, or 3, I don't know what the other.
How does Bainbridge, now Middlefield Village you're talking about?
Yeah, so
Well,
village.
they got a lot of
and
central
town.
water there.
Right,
Most
so
everything.
it's split up differently, so the different areas that are hydrogen have a lower classification than the areas that are not.
I don't think there's any place in the township that has central water, because that's a key component. They provide water, they annex.
And other
So it's gotta
aspects,
be all village.
uh,
And how does Bainbridge get down near a 3
Because
without
they got,
central water?
they got clean water
They
coming in.
have
there.
some, they have most, well,
Over by Canyon Lakes or.
yeah,
right
in
in-
places in the
Canyon Lakes,
township, yeah.
they've got a lot more than,
So it's just certain areas that are 3 and the outliers would be in the 9 range like us?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, for homeowners insurance, like there are, you have to be a certain distance from the fire station itself. So I mean, I know there's some outlying corners of Auburn
I get
that
regular
are
calls.
just far
from
enough
you.
away that
Yep.
they're, they can't get any higher just because of the distance.
Right. I get calls regularly from the insurance companies, and one of the first things they wanna know is their municipal water.
Yeah.
Second is, how much water do we have available from our trucks? Third one, is there any hydrants available? So this is where the dry hydrants come into play a little bit.
Now, the other less measurable aspect of this is, when we do have a structure fire and we're trying to So how this is generally gonna work is if we have a structure fire somewhere within the township, we're going to respond to that. We have 2 automatic aid companies that are gonna come in. Usually one of those departments, we're going to assign a water supply officer. This all depends on the incident, how everything evolves. So we can usually have our incident commands, the people who have a working knowledge of our township, specify what the closest water source is gonna be. Now, we might have something that could be a little bit closer, but we have some of these dry hydrants that are, like we have one off of Valley Road that is back down a longer driveway. Some of these aren't in great areas to get larger trucks in, get them turned around, get them filled. So the ease of use with the location of this is a big aspect that's difficult to measure. Everybody already knows where our station is at. It's easy to point people in that direction. Having 2 entrances to get in and out saves us a lot of traffic. It's always plowed and clean in the winter, which is another big component of it, because we always run into ice issues when we do start to flow water in the middle of the winter. So there's a lot of other aspects to it that are difficult to measure. I can't give you exact figures on how helpful that would be, but
So Mario, everything that you just said about this whole program right here, do you think that's a good idea to spend $50,000 to build that light?
I think given the consideration that we have some additional funding for this, I think that it would be a great project to tackle. And it's something that we can use for, decades to come with relatively minimal maintenance, and gives us a lot of other options and availability as far as water sources.
I had a little sticker shock myself because when we first started discussing this project, it's like, hey, that sounds great. But then, you're right, it's $49,000 to dig a hole and stick a hunk of PVC in it. Okay, so that seems kinda.
If we certainly didn't have the art money that we're talking about here, we wouldn't be considering this, I
Nope,
guess, what
Mario-
I'm thinking in my head.
Mario would be home watching Netflix right now or working a 3rd job or whatever
Yeah.
he does to keep himself amused. Yeah,
Okay.
again, you're right,
All
this
right.
is strictly because of the ARP funding.
Okay.
We also discussed and looked at it when we were building the road garage, the options of doing that, and we had to eliminate that option because of cost. They kind of hold our
So
costs
now
up.
it's something they wanted to do, we couldn't afford, and now we can. And somebody else's money.
And we have to spend this money, right?
Well, you can turn it back, I mean.
No, I'm not saying that, I mean, but like I said, we wouldn't even be considering this.
Yeah, I would put this at.
No argument there, I mean, that is,
Of everything we've talked about, I would say this is the lowest priority in my book.
I would say.
I don't know if you wanna run it past them first, just so we can.
We still have the option, run it past them.
yeah, we don't
can
have to do
always-
it, but like I
Yeah.
said, I think, what I wanna do is these guys to bring up what we wanted to do,
Right.
see if it's viable, and then we can make our decisions
Sure.
after that. So, on that note, I'll make a motion to, send up the information on the, pond for evaluation by the prosecutor's office.
I'll second.
Okay. Mike,
Yes,
BJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes. Were we, well, were we talking about another car,
yeah, we might as well jump into that now.
This would be CARES money.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, so this is
Yeah.
CARES money, not ARPA money. Yeah, so we approached when we first got the CARES Act funding, we were very fortunately able to get our new squad, 3057. I know at that time, we were discussing with you guys as far as ways to use some of that money. This was one of the other ideas that we had. You guys had, in the meantime, come up with some other great ideas for the township, so we pulled this back at that point in time.
Besides, we gave them 2.25 for the thing,
And,
so it's
yeah,
like,
we already
don't become greedy smurfs, we got other departments here, so, they kind of were happy with their portion of the
thrilled.
thrill.
Yes. So what we're looking at is getting funding to add an additional chase vehicle. So our current response, just so everyone has an idea of it, for every EMS call, we respond a squad as well as the chase car. That gives us the ability to have 2 personnel in the squad, 1 or 2 in the chase car. Obviously, kind of depends on how the call comes in, type of call and everything. But then we've got 3 or 4 people that are on scene, can get the patient moved into the back of the squad. And then the majority of our transports are done with a driver and then somebody in the back to take care of the patient. So that gives us the ability to send somebody else back to the station to respond to the next call.
And so, for example, when they picked you up, if
Right.
they didn't have the chase car, it was, Mr. McCune, we gotta swing past the station and drop these guys off on the way, and so,
Yeah,
you can see the benefit of a
I
chase car.
can already see the benefit of the
Yes.
chase car over our time, but go ahead.
So, we're looking at adding a half-ton pickup is probably what we're going to go with. We've been working on getting some vehicle pricing for that, which is slightly difficult at the current time, just due to inventory shortages. So we have some ballpark numbers. We're looking at somewhere between 33 and 35,000 for essentially this is a base model crew cab short bed pickup. So about 33 to 35 for the truck itself. We would put a cap on the back most likely, just so we can keep equipment and everything in there, keep it out of the elements. At about $2,000, and then lighting, radio installation, striping, everything like that is going to be approximately somewhere in the $6,000 to $8,000 range. So total project cost for us is going to be somewhere between $45,000 and $48,000 for this.
Yeah, just as a quick review, that CARES money, we got 300, I think it was 20-some thousand or 330 or something in that range. And the schools initially had their hands out for all of that. And that happened in a lot of places, not here. But it lent itself to unloading. The deadlines were so quick and the guidelines were so murky that most people wanted to offload that money to the school, or like we did with the ambulance workers as much as we could. Since then, they've been moving that deadline back and kind of making some, or loosening some of the regulations around it. And Fred, what do we got left there? About 40,000, I believe, is the number?
Somewhere around 43,000.
43,000.
And we do that as a grant, obviously, the way we did it the last
Yeah.
time. You guys would pick up the difference.
Right.
Well, and just, and then the, giving the money to the schools, we mentioned that at the last meeting just because that is an option, not one we were looking at, but it is indeed an option. So I did have a call from a constituent in Auburn Lakes who just said, no, that's a bad idea, don't give it to the schools. And they had their own opinions on it, but it seems to be the general consensus, and based on how the levy went for the last school levy, I'm guessing that would be the general consensus on that. But I mean, this is something that ultimately we're gonna have to purchase anyway. So we either ultimately purchase it with township money, or we take advantage of this situation.
Well, my feeling is, on something like that, it makes us better. And if it makes us better, and we can afford it, I'm for it.
We got like $84,000.
Yeah, we currently have a 2010, I want to say, don't quote me on the year, Ford Explorer.
It's over 10 years old.
Which is, yeah, it's been great for us, but yeah, about 87,000 miles on it, I think, almost none of which are any highway miles. So it's starting to get up there in age. We would probably look at retaining that as an additional vehicle to have, just to run around, be able to have as a second chase vehicle should we need it for a second squad call.
How many miles is that on it?
80-some
Yeah, high 80,000.
That's a new car today.
thousand, more or less.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But
Age is
yeah,
killing
age,
us.
we've got some rust issues with it, and, unfortunately, we're kind of hard on our vehicles, and it's just a regular, consumer Ford Explorer, so.
Well, the transmission should last you for 300,000.
Well, the transmission's on the newer side, so it only lasted about 60, unfortunately.
So I think the most recently revised deadline on this is February 20th? Is that right,
Yeah.
Fred?
Yeah,
Well, I think if we approve it, if we're do it for the first meeting, we'll be fine. So if we get the paperwork done, Fred,
Yeah, we'll be here the 7th.
I just have a question on that. That's, the deadline is for you guys to disperse the funds because obtaining a vehicle is gonna take a while. So I'm assuming that once
I think it's
Once
just,
we encumber it, or,
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
one?
we'll grant it to the fire department, so.
Okay.
And then it's
We have to do that,
done.
then you don't have to have the.
Yeah, we have a window to, okay, all right.
Or do you wanna send this up to the prosecutor to review the paperwork?
I think we gotta let her know we're on a deadline with this, we
Yeah.
gotta have a fairly quick answer. It's a good idea to send it up there, I mean, it's how things go.
as long as they don't drag their feet.
Yeah, we used to always, clear major purchases with them, or
Right.
at least run them past them prior,
Yeah, we'll get it up as soon as possible.
Until this spent
Yeah,
money's
that's
spent,
my
you
only
can't-
concern, is
can't
Well,
get
okay.
started.
turnaround time hasn't been the best.
No.
Yeah, well, see, okay, here's the way I look at it, okay? We grant them the 42,000, we've done our part. Now, the worst case scenario is that they come back and say, wait a minute, they bought a car with it, you can't do that. Okay, we have to give the money back, you'd have to give the money back to us. We're not gonna lose anything on that.
You're saying if the prosecutor's office says, no, we can't do this, is that what you're saying?
Well, you never can tell, it depends on their mood, actually.
Yes, it does.
I mean.
Well, if the Office of
We're-
Budget
we're-
Management
We're
comes
using
back-
almost the exact same justification for this vehicle that we used for the squad, and that was approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no
I think
reason
we're-
this shouldn't
I
be
think we're
approved,
all right,
Right.
yeah.
but, I
Okay.
mean, we'll go ahead and send it
Yeah,
up.
absolutely.
And,
Make a motion.
all right, so I'll make a motion to, send the, request for the granting the remaining CARES funds to the fire department for, purchase of chase vehicle.
I'll second.
If this doesn't cover, and it doesn't sound like it's gonna cover the entire cost, you guys are good with making that up?
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
EJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes. Okay, do we have anything else with the fire department?
Nope.
Yeah, I
Yeah, just
think
wanna
we-
say thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
No, just wanna say thanks. That's all.
yeah. I appreciate the time, consideration on everything
Yeah,
throughout all these.
we did check out the thing and, getting each of the trustees a Ferrari, there was no way we could pull that off, so we had figured we'd use it for something, useful.
It's unfortunate, but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for saving my life on Thursday. I appreciate that too.
That's what we're there for.
Sincerely, I do. Okay, we ready to move on?
Yeah,
All right, let's go to trustees' reports, and we'll start with Michael Troyan.
that was pretty much mine.
That's you? You're good?
Yep.
Well, then we'll go on to Patrick J. Kavanaugh.
Yeah, just a few things. We survived the storm. I think our guys did a pretty good job.
Excellent job.
I think they, once again, outpaced some other entities that plow roads in this township, but.
And that's with 2 trucks breaking down.
And we lost a truck, and we lost the loader. Emmett was pushing back drifts.
Yeah.
With that loader, that's only about a year old, I guess that was a malfunctioning sensor.
And still got it done within an hour and a half.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a pretty hard hit, and I think we weathered the storm, literally. Prior to that storm, we met with the engineer's office on the 11th to go over this year's projects and scheduling and basically what needed to be done prior. And we're in pretty good shape, other than some culverts maybe on Wing Road, but once again, that's just a chip seal job, and if the culverts don't get done, it's not a, that's probably the one priority, other than some other people have prettied up their ditches and a couple of our asphalt resurface areas with nice gravel to make them look, without clearing anything with the township first, so we gotta straighten those out. Yeah, well, anyway, you know, that work continues, and, we're ready for this year's project, essentially, with some minor ditch cleanup, and other than that, everything's ready to go. Most of the discussion is for the aprons on the driveways. That seems to get the most attention from the homeowners, is how it looks when they pull in their drive. What else did I have on there? I think pretty much everything else is going to
Under new
be
business,
on
yeah.
the agenda, so that's it.
Okay, and everything I have that I'd like to go over is also new business, so, how would you like to proceed with that? Go right to new business, or do you wanna go with what you have next?
I've got just a couple of things, so I'll knock them out here.
Okay.
I have, of course, your regular reports are in front of you, your payment listing report, your fund summary report, revenue summary report, and appropriation status report. We have warrants in front of you, 6859 through 6881, totaling $8,054.89. And then I have two resolutions for supplemental appropriations. And so resolution 2022-4 is for the following supplemental appropriations, and that is $5,000 in Fund 2031 330 2021, another $1,000 in 2031 332 21, and another $1,000 in that fund. Those are for medical and hospitalization expenses. $500 into Fund 2191 110 221. An additional $500 into that same fund, again for hospitalization costs. And then so that's that resolution. If I could get a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Mike,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
And then in fund a supplemental appropriation, here's resolution 2022-5, $108,414 into Road and Bridge Fund 2031 760 740, and that's for the purchase of the new road department truck.
So moved.
Second.
Mike,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
that's all that I have.
Okay, so old business, WRLC Conservation Amendment Parking Lot Expansion. I talked with Emmer today at length about this, and I guess where we're at right now is we have to have Joe Cantrell Katowski, to get all that information together for their board to look at, and then that's really what we need to proceed.
It is, he's doing the calculations on the additional stormwater runoff, which will have to raise the pipe or something. Early discussions with him is, we talked about maybe paving this whole thing. I don't think we're gonna be able to do that, because we don't have that's your impervious pavers. So you shed all that water, we probably would have to do a major renovation of the stormwater runoff.
And I told we really have to move on this between November and March because of the Indiana
Because of
bats.
bats, and Conservancy has promised that they would move quickly on this, because they're very aware of that. I talk to Pete all the time, Pete now. We gotta get Joe to get the
So
thing
Joe's
together
the
in
guy
short
we
order.
need to get it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked Emmerich to get with him and express to him
Yeah, that's been
that
done.
we can't do anything until he gets that information
That's
to us.
been done.
Okay. Let's go to new business. ODOT, 2021 Township Highway System Mileage Certification. 53.884 miles of public roadways in Auburn Township. You have a resolution for that?
Here's an interesting fact, that's actually down for the
Yes,
first
it
time
is.
in ever, because we vacated the
We
underwater
just
portion
need
of,
to sign off on the.
Washington Street.
There you go.
Right. You have the original, I have a copy, you guys have
I've got
copies
the
of that?
original here, so I don't think I need to sign this. I think I-
That's in resolution form, correct?
Right, yes.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay. Mike,
Yes.
DJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
Okay, that's a resolution to adopt the Ohio Department of Transportation certification of mileage.
Okay. Next is Resolution 2022-02, resolution of convenience and necessity for the improvements of various roads in Auburn Township.
Yeah, Fred, those came via email.
Yeah, I've got those.
Yeah.
You need a motion?
There's two different ones. One is for the chip seal project.
You want to do them both? The other one is
No, he's got
resolution
an 02 and 03, so we're gonna start with,
02.
02. Let's see, that's, asphalt resurfacing.
That's the,
Bartholomew, Auburn Glen, Queens.
got quite a few of them in there. Actually close to 4 miles or
Yeah. It's just the same page.
And if I'm not mistaken, we're one of the few townships that actually can get 4 miles of road done a year.
Yeah, it
Just saying.
could be. Some years we do better than others. Actually, it's gonna be more than
Right.
that next year when you count
Next year will be
Stafford.
close to 8.
When you count Stafford. All right, so yeah, this is Bartholomew, Edward Lane, Queens, Auburn Glen, St. James, Starbush Court, Sedge Court, and Ladue Trails. This is resurface on all those roads. And I'll make a motion to adopt resolution
Second.
2022-02.
That's right. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Mike,
Same page. Yes.
DJ,
Yes.
Yes. The second one is Resolution 2022-03, resolution of convenience and necessity for the chip seal of Franks Road, TR 0193, Section A and B.
Motion to adopt, or did you make that?
Second? I'll second.
Okay.
okay.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes. Okay, next, we have some quotes received from Hartman Electric for the Adam Hall generator. I talked to Mike this afternoon, and we also have another quote coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't quote because they were down with COVID, but we will have another quote coming in. As you can see, this quote is way down from the original quote, and I guess that first quote is 74, or whatever it was.
Yeah,
We asked him to come in a hurry and do that, and he was doing the whole building, the whole thing, and then when he had a little time, he came back and re-looked at that, and came back with the 45,261.
The 45 bid would not include having the capacity to run the air conditioning or the
Right.
heat in the main
Right,
hall.
right.
I've talked to Mike as well, and we gotta make sure we end up comparing apples and apples there.
Right, so
We just got a grant again from NOPEC.
I was just gonna say, we can use that towards that generator.
We can, that's what
But we're hoping
actually,
to use the ARP funds toward it.
yeah,
Toward the generator?
Well,
yeah.
if we look at it, I mean, one of the aspects of using the ARP funds toward Adam Hall is that it's really the largest facility that we have for emergency housing of, you know, if there's power outages or
Right.
whatever.
Okay.
The fire department is typically who would do that, but having that interferes with the operation of the fire department. So if we had a building that was basically empty, and you would have the firemen trying to work around all the cars and people coming in there and everything else, which could actually interfere with the operation. So I think that would, once we establish what we're gonna do, I think we may wanna look into the possibility, especially now with the new guidelines that came out on the ARP funding anyway.
This fellow's with
I saw that.
NOPEC here, and
Yes,
you
would
wanna
you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jeff Heinrich, Relationship Manager for NOPEC for Geauga County. It's a good problem to have. I mean, if you have other funds to put towards this, and then you can use the NOPEC money for insulation, new, whatever, new
Right.
lighting, whatever it may be, I would encourage you to go that route. But if it's one of those, it might just be easier to accept a NOPEC grant and put it towards that. It's up to you, but it's a good problem to have.
We've done, and the fire department has benefited from this quite a bit too, from the NOPEC funds over the years. We've done a lot of refurbished with
We've
the
done
lighting.
air conditioning in here, windows, LED lighting, just in this building alone.
Last year, based on, we had a real big storm first of December, multiple days out of power, including this place. And right about there's a month later, we got notice that we got the same grant from you guys last year. And I'm gonna say that was the first thought, that one was maybe a generator would be a good idea,
Yeah.
which we're waiting on install, but yeah, we're on the install. But it was kind of timely then.
Yeah.
We've had a couple instances up at Adam Hall, which is our community center,
Yep.
weddings, we vote up there, there's a lot of different things going on up there. Where we've had power loss minutes before an event. Sweating it out, haven't really lost an event due to this, but really don't intend to either, so you got a little bit of the discussion we've had over the size of the generator and what we're gonna, without this funding from you guys and this potential with the ARPA funds, we would probably just install some small, just keep the building warm and get by, but now we're gonna try to keep it fully functioning, at least that's, I think, where you're leaning.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we rent this hall. If somebody's having a wedding there, you lose all the power. And it's not a big deal for us, but this is a major life event for the
They'll
people that
probably
are
remember
having it,
that.
so.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. This, just last month, a local guy that ran the auto shop here on the west side of town, everybody knew him. His wake, Irish wake, a couple weeks after he died, was up at Adam Hall, Saturday afternoon. And we had no power at 3:30 and the event was starting at 4. They were bringing stuff in and there were no lights. Fortunately, they came back on just in time. And there was another event last fall, similar situation. So we're pushing our luck a little bit.
Generator sounds like a good idea.
We're pushing our luck a little bit.
I come from the unique position of, I was with the state treasurer's office for 8 years, and then I was hired at NOPEC. So I always say, when I worked for the state, and especially now at NOPEC, municipalities can find a place to spend money. If they're given money, municipalities, if they're smart, will find a place to put that money towards. So if it's whether it's our grant or the ARP, whatever, you can fund it, go for it. But if it's one of those things where, well, we can only spend the ARP money on the generator, combine it with NOPEC rate, or if it's just that'll take care of everything, NOPEC money can be used for anything that's energy efficient.
Yeah, that's what I said, we'll go through the ARP money first, and then, something, basically use the NOPEC money for something that the ARP money won't cover.
Yep.
It's gonna, give us the most bang for our buck.
And this is a good thing too, because that's one of the reasons I came tonight, was just kind of, hear what's going on in Auburn Township, but also the sponsorship money that we have for any community event that's non-political, non-religious affiliated. Make sure to accept that. The deadlines are not imminent, but they're coming up. And then the same thing with the grants. The easiest thing for both of those funds is just accept them. You don't have to worry about what event it's going to be or what you're going to put the grant money towards, although it sounds like you have a good idea. As long as you just accept them, you can worry about all that stuff later on. And then the Ohio Township Association conference will be down there next week.
Yeah, it's coming up. Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Actually, get you guys my card. Check it out. Fred, do you still, do you have mine, or?
I've got your info, Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
There you go, thank you.
Thank you. And then possibly see you guys next week or another time. Got my information, anything you need, feel free to reach out.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you,
guys.
appreciate you. All right, next on the agenda is a quote received by Buckeye Power Sales for the administration generator maintenance of a fee of $525 annually. Any conversation on that? A lot of the stuff I have to hear from you guys because I wasn't here.
Yeah, it doesn't seem unreasonable for a maintenance contract for a generator. What are we paying for
The road
that?
department's about $850.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more.
So,
They
I
come out
think,
twice a year. One's a complete PM, the filter change and oil and all that. Second one is they come out and just check it over and make sure everything's up to snuff.
so it's a reasonable price, and they're the ones doing the installation, so it does give us the, they can't say, well, somebody did this, so if you got the same company doing the PM and the installation, or supplying the equipment, I'd have no problem with going with this.
This is a 3-year agreement. Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the Buckeye agreement for generator maintenance for $525 annually.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Mike,
Yes.
PJ?
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
Okay, Gene, I think you should, or Fred should have the original copy.
I have it
You have it, Fred?
here. Yep.
And as chairman, you get to sign it.
Okay. I may have already signed it. Just kidding. All right, where do you want me to sign? Underneath the veto number.
I think they want you to sign right there.
Okay. All right. Quotes received from Auburn Fence and Shadyside Cemetery for the fence we talked about. And Mike dropped off, if you'll see to your right, Mike, a 3-inch fence and a 4-inch topper. Because in that quote you saw was, we really didn't see what kind of fence he was talking about. So that's what he's talking about. And he would think that the 4-inch top, that one you got in your hand, would probably be much better than the 3-inch. And I'm told that he said he can definitely have this up before Memorial Day.
Yeah, we've been talking, I've talked to Mike last year.
Right.
Not long after, reason we let the fence go to heck up
I
there
understand,
was
because of the
because of the
freeway.
road project. So now at least we know where the ditch is. Even Mike has mentioned that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to survey to make sure we're a foot back.
Right.
And but at the same time as, we were dealing with the construction out here, when the church folded and sold their property, they gifted the township $75,000,
Saw that.
more than actually $150,000, but 75 of it dedicated to cemeteries and maintenance and the like. So we kind of moved off that cheaper hedgerow thing that we were going to do to maybe something more permanent and less
Right.
maintenance.
I think it's gonna save in the long run.
It will, yeah, because even out here with the hedgerow, they trim it twice a
Right.
year, 2 weeks later you can't tell,
Yeah,
they grow so
absolutely.
crazy. So I think this is the better route to go.
I do too.
Uh,
I think the 4-inch topper is probably better than the
Yeah,
3-inch.
and per Mike Ludwig, who's done the work on it, Donnie's not gonna have any problem with supply,
Right.
and if we let him know, I think if we acted on this at the first meeting in February, once we get a whole picture of what it's gonna look like and everything, we'll be good, we'll get it in.
Okay.
So I'd like to leave that on the agenda, just kind of soak in that expense a little bit, but
Okay.
Fred, how did that set up with those gifts? Could we, I believe we could tap into that for this
Yeah, I
expenditure.
think it's any maintenance or improvement at the cemetery.
Oh, and the other thing we need to talk about too is that 31,000 includes every place on the east side, all the split rail, which goes back almost halfway through the cemetery on the
Right.
roofs.
Right.
And then it goes into some severe overgrown rhododendrons and whatnot. There's a lot in there that would have to come out to take it all the way to the back. On the west side, he's talking about wrapping it around about 60 feet and stopping there. His thought was, and you'll see this once in a while when you go down there, you know, there's no neighbor on this side. There's no maintenance on this side. And there's trees that fall west to east. And we would probably want to maybe delineate that with something cheaper than this for the rest of that western. But yeah, you'd get the good look from the road of 60 feet.
Yeah, a tree falls on this aluminum fence, it's,
Tree falls on a split rail, it's pretty cheap to fix.
yeah, just not so much.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're on the subject of the cemetery, I had a talk again this afternoon with Emmerich on that back property that we had purchased
Mhm.
from the Kosar estate there or whatever. We have a little over 8 acres in that. And Emmerich's suggestion is we take a little less than 5 of those acres where we can actually, you wanna look at this, can actually square this off, okay? And start the process, or at least talking about the process of clearing this, putting up things for water, and then it could be a 2 or 3 year project to clear it 1 year, level it the next year, plant it but it's something that we need to at least start talking about. And again, because we have that generous money from the church, maybe this year we should think about this plan of just knocking off 5 acres, which would last us a very long time.
Very long time.
And then maybe this year at least clear that tree removal from that area.
Yeah, I have no
Because
problem
we
with
do
that.
have the money for it, and,
Yeah. Because, I mean, that was one of the things, when the Kosar property came up, it was just,
right,
it was too perfect, because it came right behind there, we didn't have to do any
Right.
additional cemeteries or anything, and then we managed to resell the place, so, basically we got 8 acres for a pretty good price.
right. And that money, again, you have that money set off for a cemetery, which was donated to the church, so we do have the money,
Mhm.
right? So I would suggest we tell Emmerich to have Dash or somebody give us a quote. At
Yeah,
least get us a quote
we actually did a
on
selective
this.
cut in there, if you remember. We sold, about $9,000 out of there?
Yeah, we cut down
We
some
did
of
a
the larger
selective
trees
cut of
already,
that
we
wood.
Whoa.
sold
Yeah.
those off.
It was quite selective. There's, I'm gonna say half of it remains, you
Okay.
know.
And again, this would be another one of those projects that if we were just gonna clear the trees, we'd have to do it between now and March.
Yeah, there might be enough in there to get paid, left in there.
Yeah.
We'd have to, I actually had a forester in there. Gosh, it was, Terry John, no. God, who was the forester out of Burton? And he died, and this was his wife, his widow's a professional forester, and we walked it, and she gave us an estimate. Your buddy, Steve Baker, came and did it. Remember Steve Baker?
I do that.
You remember Steve Baker lived up, the Bakers lived behind Hastings?
Okay. David.
He worked for Farinacci and went over to, he's doing his own business now out of the Pittsburgh area. He came up one weekend just to visit,
Well,
and
you
he
know,
walked it. And we made some money in there.
Well, you
We
know,
did have to do a give back because we didn't want to leave all the tops in there. We didn't want certain people taking pictures of people cutting wood and accusing the townships of giving away firewood. I don't know who would do something like that. But, so we had the brush ground. We had that chipped, and that was a major that took the top off of the payment we were gonna get, but I still
Well, it
think
still might have-
we cleared over 8,000 in there.
Yeah, but again, it might be, you know, it's.
So
how
you
many
think there's
years-
still harvestable
I
trees in
think
there
there
we can sell?
was, I think there was, it was a very selective cut.
So we should do that before we
We should
have
take a
somebody
look-
like
we should
that
take a
look
look
at
at that.
it.
How many years has it been since we had it in there, so they've had plenty of time to, the ones that weren't big enough to harvest back
And
then.
the other, yeah, that's true, it's been, I don't know, it was right after we bought it that we did that. The other thing is there's some topography in there too.
Well, it slopes down at an angle, but only by about, I don't know. If you look
I
at
seem
this,
to remember
it's
the
about
west was
30.
pretty, the west was pretty good.
Yeah.
West
it-
and
it
east, it got
slopes
a
that
little,
way
yeah.
down. And let's be honest, cemeteries, I mean, we have hills in our cemeteries, so it's not like it's gotta be perfectly flat. But I really think we should go ahead and investigate if in fact there's harvestable trees in there, to get paid for it, and then have someone like Dash or somebody come in and give us a quote. And let's at least clear that area this year. Does that sound good to everybody? Because we have the money, yeah, I don't have, we already have the money, right, it's for the cemetery,
Yes.
okay.
We did, and, you know, I kind of veered off into some minutia when I was talking a little bit earlier. That's one of the first things I did when I got elected in '96, or got on board in '96, is I worked with Braun Prenisol, and they did the layout of the west road, you know, with all the pins and the markers and everything. And that was Kevin Braun that did that, of course, he's gone now, but, yeah, so that's how, it's been 25 years plus since we added any more graves for sale there. And that was the west, I think everything on the west side of the west road.
All right, yeah, because we could make this, like I said, we could easily make this a 3-year project, or, you know, just start the ball rolling.
Yeah, I have no
Get it
problem
going.
with, like I said, having somebody come in, give us a,
It is what we bought it for, and you're right, we got time, so we don't need to
Right.
rush into
Yeah, we got
anything.
time and
It's not
money,
like this
so-
parking lot, which we would like to do in a timely fashion.
Right.
This we can take our time doing. See if we can offset some costs maybe with
Okay.
someone.
All right, you want to check in the Forester?
I'll find somebody, it was
and I'll
Lynn, her
check
name
with-
was Lynn?
I think
First
I
name was Lynn.
I don't know if I know something.
God, I can't remember her last name. I can
I'll
find
check
it.
with, I'll tell Emmerich to check with Dash down the road and see, just give it a preliminary cost, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay. Let's see, I did get another report from Mike, as far as cemetery for 2021. In January of 2022, I also got some January, we had 4 graves sold to 2 residents. Yearly totals for 2021, we had 27 graves sold to 11 residents, 12 burials, 6 full burials and 6 ash interments, 15 headstone footers installed. And again, we are working on the fence with Auburn Fence to quote samples and then to approach the expansion to the south. So we've done both of that tonight. And I think,
We had,
is there anything else on the agenda?
we have this agreement with Cummins.
Okay.
That's for
We've already
maintenance.
made a motion for this, right? For the truck,
Sorry?
service generator maintenance. Okay.
Yeah, that's the generator at the maintenance garage.
Did we have a motion for that? Did we
No.
already pass that? No, we need a motion for the service garage generator maintenance.
And that's 850.
no, we already did that, that's the,
We did?
I thought we
well,
did.
we did the administration building
This is,
maintenance.
this is for the service garage.
We didn't do the road yet.
Yeah, we didn't do the road garage.
They did an agenda here,
We've got a, let's see, payment, total proposal $724.96.
Annual? Yes, probably.
Payment reason. Quote date, May, November 1st, expires May 22nd. So yeah, 1 year.
Okay.
Is this in line with what we paid last year, or?
Yeah, Yeah, that is
So it's,
what you
Yeah.
mean.
I'll make the motion to,
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
second it.
all right.
Mike,
yes,
PJ,
Yes.
Gene,
Yes.
and then are we going to leave the Hartman Electric estimate?
We're
on the
gonna wait,
table
like
for now?
Mike said, we have one more quote coming in, and I
Okay.
guess at the next meeting, we'll look
Yeah,
at those
and-
two
and-
quotes and make sure we're
And
comparing
we,
apples with
we
apples.
kinda clouded it up a little bit after that initial 70,000, we asked maybe to downsize, but now that, based on what I'm hearing, our funds are gonna be able to cover it, we're gonna go back probably to the original, run the whole building. So we wanna make sure we're looking at similar apples to apples quotes.
Just make sure that's. Okay, so that compares new business, save the date on 1/25, we have a BZA meeting at 7 PM. 1/27, we have a zoning commission meeting, and on 2/7 will be the next board of trustees meeting. Are there any comments or anything from the public? Well, in that case, I'll thank everybody for coming tonight, appreciate you, and I'll make a motion to close.
second,
Mike,
yes.
PJ,
Yes.
Gene?
Yes.
Alright, so I got, what's gonna be on the next agenda is gonna be generator, fence, and of course that, right?
Generator.
Those ones are
Yes,
gonna be carried
yes.
over.
Carry over.